My parents trampled on my dreams and worshiped my sister until the day I was appointed CEO. The day Robert Blackwell called me son in front of the board, my parents' jaws finally dropped. The room exploded in applause, the kind that echoed off glass walls and mahogany panels like cannon fire. I stood at the head of the conference table, my palms resting on the polished surface, knuckles tight but steady. Every board member was on their feet. Cameras flashed. Somewhere off to the side, the live stream was already trending. Robert raised a hand to quiet the room. His voice sliced through the noise with surgical precision. She thinks like I do. She's the son I never had. He looked straight at me and smiled. Not the rehearsed corporate kind, but the rare private kind I'd seen only once before, the day he offered me my first director position. A pause. Just long enough for the words to hit. I turned slightly, as if drawn by gravity, and locked eyes with my mother. Her hands were clasped in her lap, her knuckles bone white, eyes fixed somewhere just past my shoulder. My father sat next to her, mouth slightly open, blinking as though the entire meeting had malfunctioned. Emily, perfect Emily, was perched beside them in a pastel blazer, her smile a fraction too wide, a hair too stiff. No one in my family clapped. Flashbulbs snapped again, anchoring the moment in time. I smiled. Not for the press, not for the board, but for myself. The kind of smile you save for silent victories. Behind me, Robert leaned close and said softly, "Don't let them minimize this moment." "They can't," I replied. "Not anymore." I turned back to the board and delivered the line I'd rehearsed 100 times in my bathroom mirror. "Thank you for believing in vision over resume and results over reputation. Black tech doesn't just innovate. We evolve." Another round of applause. It was loud enough to shake glass, loud enough to drown out the silence from row 3. As the meeting adjourned and executives swarmed Robert to shake hands, I moved slowly toward the edge of the room where my family sat. Emily stood first. "Congratulations," she said quickly, her voice bright but brittle. "Wow. CEO." Her eyes searched my face as if trying to locate the little sister she once kept in her shadow. "Thanks," I said, offering nothing more. My eyes flicked toward our parents. My mother rose slowly, like someone unaccustomed to standing in uncertain terrain. "Claire," she started, and then stopped. Her gaze scanned the room. Robert shaking hands, executives smiling at me, the camera still rolling. "How did you—" I cut her off with a single breath. "Exactly like you taught me not to." My father didn't speak at all, just stared, blinking like he was trying to read a headline in a foreign language. I turned and walked away. Not out of disrespect, but because this moment wasn't theirs. It was mine. I had built it in silence. Out of every ignored report card, every dismissed idea, every lonely walk back to campus. This room wasn't an accident. It was architecture. And I'd been drawing blueprints since I was 8. The press would call it a breakthrough. The board would call it a pivot. My parents? They'd call it luck. They never saw me coming. But I'd been building this for 20 years. I made my first dollar selling lemonade. My parents didn't even come to see the stand. It was a Tuesday in late July, the kind of summer day that stuck to your skin. I dragged the folding table out to the front yard by myself, scraping the legs over the driveway until the metal shrieked. The sun beat down like it had a personal vendetta. I was 8 years old and wearing my favorite yellow sandals, the ones with glitter that never quite stayed on. My sign read, "Fresh lemonade, $1, ice included free." The marker bled through the cardboard a little, but I was proud of my lettering. I'd spent the morning hand-squeezing lemons, mixing just enough sugar, and taste testing until it was perfect. The paper cups were stacked in a neat pyramid. My Hello Kitty notebook sat open next to the cash jar. $2 in coins, mostly nickels I'd found in the couch cushions. Emily's violin echoed from upstairs, screechy and perfect all at once. She was 12 and preparing for some recital. Mom had rearranged the whole living room for her stage. Dad was in the home office, pacing on a call, gesturing with one hand and scribbling nonsense with the other. They knew I was out there. I told them. I even taped a second sign on the inside of the screen door. Today only, Claire's Lemonade. With 2 hearts and a smiley face, I waited. A few neighbors passed by. Most didn't stop. I counted my inventory twice, rearranged the cups 3 times. The sun dipped just enough to make the shadows longer. My arms were sticky from the lemon syrup. Then, at exactly 2:37 p.m., Mrs. Garrison walked over. She was in her usual gardening gloves and floppy straw hat, smelling faintly of rosemary and sunscreen. "How much?" she asked, pointing at the pitcher. $1, I said, straightening up. "Or 2 cups for $1.50. Bulk discount." She tilted her head, then smiled like I'd just told her a secret. "You've got a business brain, kid." My heart did a backflip. She handed me 2 crisp dollar bills, took a cup, and raised it like a toast. "To your empire." I logged the sale in my notebook. 1 unit sold, $1 revenue, 22 cents cost of goods, including cup and ice. Profit, 78 cents. Across the yard, I saw the curtains shift in the kitchen window. My mom peeked out, phone in one hand, coffee in the other. She gave a little wave, one of those half-hearted gestures that barely qualifies as attention, and mouthed, "Cute hobby," before disappearing again. I stood there for another hour. No other customers, no parents, no clapping. Emily's violin kept screeching. When the ice melted and the sun dipped low enough to swallow my shadow, I packed everything up. I put the extra cups back in the kitchen. No one noticed. Later that evening, after dinner, I walked into the den where Dad was watching TV and held out my first real money. $5 total. Folded neatly, proud and trembling in my hand. He didn't look up. "That's nice," he said. "Can you help your sister tune her violin?" I didn't answer, just turned and walked back to my room. That night, I counted the money again, smoothed out each bill, logged the income line one more time in all caps. Profit equals success. Then I tucked it into a shoebox and shoved it under my bed, because no one cared enough to ask. Emily got flowers and standing ovations. I got told to be more realistic. Dinner was pot roast, Emily's favorite, and the good silverware was out. That was my first clue this night wasn't about me. My parents only brought out the matching set for holidays, company, or when Emily had something to celebrate. And since there were no guests and the turkey was still frozen in the freezer, it had to be the latter. Mom lit the tall candles. Dad opened the wine. Emily sat with her chin tilted like royalty. Her violin case was propped by the door, even though no one asked her to play. Just the sight of it added weight to the air, as if her mere proximity to greatness should be enough for all of us to breathe easier. Dad raised his glass. "To Emily, our very own maestro. State finals next month, and a scholarship interview at Lakeview Arts Conservatory." Mom beamed. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart." Emily gave a modest smile and looked down like she hadn't already memorized every word of the scene. I cleared my throat. "I made $120 last week. 14 tubes of homemade lip balm, custom labeled and hand-poured. I'd even upsold 2 bundles with a buy 3 get 1 free promotion." There was a pause. A heartbeat of silence. Mom looked over with a fond expression that felt like a pat on the head. "That's adorable, Claire. But have you thought about nursing?" I blinked. "Why would I?" Dad cut in. "It's a stable career, something practical." Emily laughed. "Selling lip balm isn't a business, Claire. It's arts and crafts." I didn't respond. Instead, I folded my napkin twice, then twice again. In my mind, I recalculated the cost per unit of my base ingredients. Beeswax, coconut oil, essential oils. My margins were solid. The problem wasn't my business model. It was the investors. After dinner, I wandered into Emily's room. Her trophy cabinet gleamed. Music medals, framed certificates, photos with symphony directors. Her world had structure, approval, applause. Mine had spreadsheets and blank stares. Back in my room, I sat cross-legged on the floor and opened the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was a shoebox, same one from the lemonade stand days. The money was crisp, folded, arranged by denomination. I ran my thumb over each bill, like they were shares in a company only I could see. On the wall above my desk was my vision board, a photo of a glass headquarters I'd cut out from a business magazine, logos of companies I admired, a chart I'd drawn myself that tracked monthly revenue, complete with arrows and notations in red ink. No flowers, no recitals, just paper dreams. They toasted her. I quietly calculated profit margins on a napkin. Emily's Cornell acceptance sat in the center of the table like a shrine. Mine ended up in the mail pile. There were flowers, yellow tulips and pink roses, fanned out across the kitchen counter like someone had commissioned a florist for a wedding. Gold and maroon balloons bobbed near the ceiling. A homemade banner hung crookedly above the dining room entrance. "Welcome to Cornell, Emily." The letter itself was placed atop a silver tray, as if it needed its own stage. It wasn't even open anymore, but Mom had propped it up anyway. Its bold serif lettering on thick cardstock facing outward. Dad kept pointing to it every time someone walked in. She got into the pre-med honors program. He told our neighbor, his voice puffed with pride. Full scholarship, housing covered. They even gave her a MacBook. Emily floated through the room in a satin blouse, smiling like a campaign poster. She hugged guests, accepted compliments with a gentle hand on her chest. "Oh, thank you. I've worked so hard." Her violin case leaned against the piano like a reminder of all the perfect notes she'd hit along the way. I stood by the fridge, sipping flat soda from a red plastic cup, pretending not to exist. No one asked about my envelope. It had arrived 2 days later. Thin, crinkled, addressed to Miss Claire Mitchell with no university crest, no pomp. I had opened it in the hallway. Partial scholarship to State University's business program. Enough to cover tuition. Barely. I'd placed it on the table that morning. By lunch, someone had moved it to the mail pile next to the cable bill. When the party died down, I waited until Dad was rinsing wine glasses. "Will you be able to help with housing?" He didn't turn around. "We're already covering everything for Emily's program. You understand." I got into my first choice. He sighed. "Business isn't a guaranteed return, Claire. We're investing in a sure path. Medicine has structure. But I've been building this for years. You've seen my plan. I've seen a lot of lip balm tubes and lemonade stains." That night, I sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor, calculator in one hand, acceptance letter in the other. I had about $2,700 in savings from babysitting, odd jobs, and my mini business ventures. If I worked full-time all summer, maybe I could stretch it for housing and books. But it would be close. Too close. I opened a spreadsheet on my old laptop and started mapping out expenses by week. Rent, food, emergency. I color-coded every cell. When I reached the final row, I stared at the number circled in red. I was $1,842 short. From downstairs, the clinking of glasses and faint classical music drifted up. I walked quietly toward the landing just in time to hear Mom chatting with her friend Diane. "Emily has always been the driven one," she said lightly. "Claire's still figuring it out." It wasn't cruel. It wasn't even said with malice. Just a fact. A declaration so casual, it felt like it had already been carved into stone. I returned to my room, closed the spreadsheet, and searched for summer jobs. They invested in her dreams. I took out a loan against mine. I didn't need a dorm. I had a used Honda, 3 jobs, and a spreadsheet. The car's air conditioning was unreliable, but its trunk held my life. 2 suitcases, a crate of notebooks, 1 chipped coffee mug, and a vision board folded in half. My apartment, if you could call it that, was a shared rental in the suburbs, 30 minutes from campus. The room was small enough that I could touch both walls if I stretched, but it was mine, rented with my own money. Every weekday, I woke at 6, brewed instant coffee, and rode the bus to the campus bookstore where I restocked shelves for 4 hours, then class. Then another shift working remotely as a virtual assistant for a marketing firm. On weekends, I did both. My calendar was color-coded down to the hour. Sleep came in borrowed increments. Most people my age were adjusting to communal bathrooms and frat parties. I was adjusting to balancing income against utilities. It wasn't glamorous, but it was structured. And I thrived in structure. One Thursday afternoon in my introductory logistics course, Professor Blake introduced a case study on supply chain distribution. The model was clean. Too clean. I raised my hand. Wouldn't this create a bottleneck at the supplier's second distribution hub? I asked. And wouldn't the lead time variability impact the final delivery cost? She paused, looked at me. Explain. I did. Slowly at first, then with more certainty. I referenced data from the textbook and cross-applied it to a mock scenario from a previous chapter. After class, she caught up with me in the hallway. What's your name again? Claire Mitchell. You see patterns, she said, tapping the folder in her arms. Most students don't catch that until grad school. I blinked. Are you saying I should go to graduate school? I'm saying, she said with a slight smile, you're thinking at an MBA level. I didn't know what to say. My brain filed the compliment away like a classified document. High value, minimal witnesses, store securely. The next week, I entered the university's business strategy competition. My concept was an AI-augmented delivery platform that adjusted routes based on real-time weather and traffic data. I made it to the top 3. No scholarships, no applause, just a printed certificate I taped to my closet door. On Friday, a postcard arrived. Dear Claire, heard about your award from the local bulletin board? Yes, I still check it. Not surprised one bit. You've had the mind of a CEO since you were 8. Love, Mrs. Garrison. I stood in the kitchen holding the card like it was made of gold. My roommates laughed in the living room, the TV blaring some dating show. I stayed there in the sliver of silence between microwave beeps and laughter and read the words again. For the first time, someone saw my brain. Not just my grades. They threw Emily an engagement party with 50 guests. They said they'd try to come to my graduation. The auditorium smelled like folding chairs and filtered air. Hundreds of families packed the rows. Moms crying, dads fidgeting with phone cameras, siblings holding balloons. The kind of scene you imagine when you're 8 years old and first hear the word valedictorian. I was valedictorian, and my family wasn't there. Professor Blake sat in the seat labeled reserved for family. She wore her department robe and clapped so hard I thought her palms might bruise. Her smile never wavered. When I crossed the stage, she stood up. No one else did. My speech had taken weeks to write. I rewrote it 9 times, pruned it, sharpened it, made it tight. I thanked the faculty, the peers who challenged me, and the long nights fueled by vending machine coffee. I never said my parents' names. Not once. When it was over, people took pictures. Some posed with balloons, others with bouquets. I walked to my car, heels in one hand, diploma in the other, and placed it gently in the back seat of my Honda. I didn't bother taking a photo. I sat in the driver's seat, checked my phone. 3 texts. Dad. Hope the ceremony went well. Send us a picture. Mom. Sorry we couldn't be there. Emily's party ran longer than expected. Emily. Video attachment. She and James laughing as my father raised a glass. To the perfect pair. In the background, there was music. Laughter, silver streamers, champagne flutes. I turned off my phone and stared straight ahead. The passenger seat held my packed duffel bag, my laptop case, a folder with onboarding materials from Black Tech. Atlanta was a 5-hour drive. Professor Blake appeared beside my window, tapping lightly. You ready? She asked. I nodded. She handed me a gift bag. Inside was a monogrammed pen and a single sheet of paper, a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. I swallowed hard. She stepped back and smiled. Their absence is their loss. The business world just gained something extraordinary. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even flinch. I just turned the key, shifted into drive, and pulled onto the main road. Diploma seat buckled beside me like it deserved the safest ride of its life. No applause. But I still heard the sound of steps. Mine. Moving forward. My salary barely covered rent. So I paid myself in spreadsheets and pride. The office lights buzzed like mosquitoes. It was past 9 p.m., and the rest of the floor had emptied hours ago. I sat hunched over my desk, eyes burning, fingers dancing across the keyboard. My boss, Curtis, had dropped a folder on my desk at 4:57 with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Need this cleaned up by morning? No, thank you. No, sorry. Just dumped deadlines like fast food wrappers. I didn't argue. I opened a new tab. The building's AC clicked off for the night, and the silence wrapped around me like a second skin. I liked the quiet. At least it was honest. At home, my room was barely wider than my bed. The mattress slouched in the middle, and the walls were thin enough to hear my roommate's alarm go off at 5 a.m., even on weekends. In the kitchen, our microwave tilted sideways on a stack of books. Dinner was ramen. Again, I'd perfected the ratio of water to seasoning like it was a science. Each night, after dinner and emails and enough caffeine to keep me from collapsing, I opened my personal Excel tracker. I logged the time I spent on every task Curtis assigned. I color-coded the ones where I'd rewritten his models. I started tagging files with my initials in the metadata, just in case. One Thursday, I took a late lunch. My head was heavy from 2 back-to-back meetings where I'd said nothing and taken notes for everyone. I wandered into the cafe near the office. Quiet, tucked into the corner of a strip mall. I found a table near the back and opened my laptop to review some supply chain models. It felt safer than checking the family group chat, which hadn't mentioned me in weeks. Distribution optimization? A voice asked. I looked up. A guy about my age stood nearby, holding a black coffee and wearing a faded MIT t-shirt. He nodded toward my screen. Your flowchart. My guard went up. Yes. He didn't sit, just nodded. Most people forget to factor in return cycles. You didn't. I blinked. How did you? I'm in manufacturing tech. I've seen enough messy models to spot a clean one. I nodded once, wary. I'm Ethan, he said, lifting his coffee slightly in a gesture between a toast and a farewell. You ever want to talk logistics without buzzwords, I'm usually here. Then he left. I stared at the screen for a long minute after he disappeared. No one had ever complimented one of my models before, not even when it saved the team 15% in transport costs last month. Curtis had emailed the results to the regional VP, CCCing the entire department. Pleased to report Q2 logistics savings following internal restructuring, thanks to team efforts. Team efforts. He hadn't written a single formula. I didn't push back, but I made a copy and saved it under my name. I got a raise. Emily got a baby bump. Guess which news made it to the family newsletter? The office lights flickered as the printer kicked on behind me, spitting out updated inventory forecasts. I sat at my desk, staring at the subject line in my inbox. Promotion confirmation, effective immediately. My name sat next to the new title, Senior Analyst. A 20% raise. My first official team. My first office with a door that almost closed. I took a photo of the screen and hovered over the family group chat. It had been quiet all week, until 10 minutes ago. Emily. Look who's going to be a big sister. Attachment. Blurry ultrasound. Mom. Our hearts are so full. Dad. Already cleared a corner of the garage for baby gear. The chat icon shimmered with a new wallpaper, an ultrasound background. I hadn't known group chats could even do that. I still sent the screenshot of my promotion. No one replied. I waited. 5 minutes, 10. The little gray dots never danced. So I called. Mom answered. Hi, sweetie, isn't it wonderful? Emily just told us this morning. She's glowing. I took a breath. Yeah. I got promoted. Senior analyst. They made the announcement today. A pause. Then, that's nice, dear. Oh, did I tell you Emily's OB is the same one who delivered her piano teacher's twins? She was still talking when I ended the call. I closed the chat, closed the tab, closed the blinds. A soft knock sounded on my door 10 minutes later. It creaked open, and a pizza box slid through the crack like a peace offering. Ethan didn't follow it in, just left it on the edge of the table and disappeared. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I opened my laptop. New document. Title. Resume. Claire Mitchell. I listed the new position first. The savings I delivered. The team I now led. Every line was factual, measured, clean. At the top of the page, I typed, "No one clapped." Then I deleted it. Then I typed it again. My phone buzzed. Ethan. Ethan, want to talk? I dialed. "Tell me I'm not overreacting," I said. "You're not," he replied gently. "You're just not seen." I stared at the glowing cursor on my screen. It blinked like it was trying to breathe for me. I updated my resume. Not for a job, but to remind myself I existed. Most executives don't show up to staff meetings. Robert Blackwell did, and he asked for my data. We all noticed him the second he walked in. The room stiffened. My manager, Curtis, suddenly stood straighter, and even Martin from procurement stopped playing with his pen. Robert Blackwell was a myth. CEO of Black Tech, the kind of man who built billion-dollar systems and still showed up with polished shoes and handwritten notes. He took a seat in the back, arms crossed, watching everything like a hawk disguised as a mentor. Curtis gave the usual rundown. Delays, cost overruns, vague goals no one cared about. Then he gestured toward me. "Claire's been playing around with some optimization stuff. Not finalized yet, but let's take a look." Playing around? I stood, heart pounding but face neutral. I clicked to the first slide. "I've designed an AI-integrated model that analyzes delivery delays across distribution points and reroutes in real time based on local weather, traffic, and fuel data." Blank stares. Curtis leaned back like I was reciting a bedtime story. Then Robert raised his hand. "Can you show me the logic tree behind your model?" My fingers twitched over the trackpad. "Yes, sir." I flipped 2 slides ahead. "The engine prioritizes by demand volatility, then assigns weights to time-sensitive cargo." "And your data set?" he asked. 5 quarters of performance data from our Midwest branch, with projections extended using Monte Carlo simulations. The room was dead silent. Robert nodded slowly. "What's your name?" "Claire Mitchell." He stood. "Claire, bring your full data set to my office, tomorrow, 9 a.m. Curtis blinked. "Mr. Blackwell, I can assist with—" "I asked for Claire," Robert said without looking at him. Then he walked out. The room remained frozen. Curtis cleared his throat. "Well, okay, great. Let's wrap it there." By the time I got back to my desk, my hands were already on the keyboard. I didn't wait. I spent the next 9 hours combing through every formula, rechecking every line of data, formatting every page like it was going to be reviewed by God himself. At 3:12 a.m., I printed the last sheet. My fingers trembled as I slid the pages into a slim black folder. I barely slept. I didn't care. If Curtis fired me, so be it. I had never been seen like that before. At exactly 9 o'clock, I stepped into Robert's office. He studied the pages in silence, flipping through them with the care of someone reading a blueprint to something worth building. After a long pause, he looked up. "You don't belong here, Claire." I swallowed. "Sir?" "You belong somewhere your ideas aren't an afterthought." He slid a card across the table. "I need someone like you at Black Tech, Junior Operations Director. Think about it." The card was thick, matte black, engraved in silver. The business card was heavy. So was everything it represents. It had glass walls, silent floors, and actual air conditioning. I'd arrived. The elevator doors parted with a whisper. No clunky grind, no flickering fluorescent lights, just polished chrome, frosted glass, and quiet that felt intentional. Black Tech headquarters didn't hum. It breathed, smooth, measured, controlled. The receptionist smiled like she'd been trained by a hospitality AI. "Welcome, Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Blackwell is expecting you." I followed a sleek hallway past conference rooms named after constellations. People wore muted colors, carried tablets instead of coffee mugs, and walked with the purposeful rhythm of those who didn't need to prove they belonged. My new office had a whiteboard wall, a swivel chair that actually swiveled, and a floor-to-ceiling window that framed the Atlanta skyline like a painting. The door closed without a creak. My name was already etched on the small silver plaque, Claire Mitchell, Junior Director of Operations. Robert arrived minutes later, wearing the same calm intensity he'd had in the conference room weeks ago. He nodded toward the gathering team in the adjacent conference room. "This is your floor now. These are your people. Treat them with precision and expect the same. Also," he paused, "they treat you like they treat me." A chill, half honor, half terror, threaded through me. I entered the room. Heads turned. I met each gaze with the calm confidence I'd learned to fake and finally started to believe. They introduced themselves. Lead engineers, systems analysts, regional logistics officers. All older, all sharper, all watching. I didn't flinch. After the meeting, I slipped away for coffee. Same cafe, same corner table. The old rhythm felt like muscle memory. Only this time I wasn't hunched behind spreadsheets. I was something else. Ethan appeared with 2 lattes and a smirk. "You look different," he said. "New job, new stress, same coffee." He reached into his bag and pulled out a tiny figurine, a Lego woman in a black suit holding a clipboard. I raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" He shrugged. "Just a placeholder." I laughed. "That's dangerously sweet." Back at Black Tech, Robert called me into his office. A tablet waited for me with 5 open dashboards. "International shipping," he said, pointing. "We're hemorrhaging 7 figures a quarter. Delays, redundancies, misreported inventory." He closed the tablet and met my gaze. "You solve this. We talk long-term future." Emily missed our call. Twice. That never happened before. It was 11:38 p.m. when my phone lit up the corner of my desk. "Emily." I tapped accept. Nothing. Just silence. Then a click. The call ended. I waited. 30 seconds later, it rang again. This time, before I could say hello, it stopped. Just like that. I stared at the screen, frowning. Emily didn't miss calls. She scheduled them. She sent calendar invites for coffee catch-ups, even if it was just on FaceTime. She curated life like a color-coded Pinterest board. And she had never left me hanging. I checked the family group chat. No updates from her. The chat was filled with baby photos, recipes Mom was trying, and Dad's unsolicited health articles. Emily had been silent for 5 days. I hadn't noticed. That realization stung. Behind me, Ethan leaned over the top of his cubicle, half a granola bar in his hand. "You okay?" I hesitated, then showed him the screen. "She called twice. No message." He raised an eyebrow. "Weird. I think something's wrong." Ethan nodded slowly. "Sometimes the strongest people crack the hardest." That line sat with me. Back at my desk, I opened Instagram. I never did that at work, but I was curious. Emily's page was still immaculate. Baby bump progressions, nursery pastels, a quote from some pediatrician about the value of early reading. But her smile, it looked a little off. Not wrong, just tired. Dimmed. Someone in the comments said so too. A Black Tech employee walked by and paused at my screen. "Is that your sister? She looks different. I saw her tagged in a reel yesterday." I minimized the tab. "Yeah, she's just tired." That night, as I packed my things, my phone buzzed again. A notification from iMessage. But when I clicked it, the message was already gone. A draft? A delete? Still, I caught the preview. Do you ever feel lost? For the first time in maybe forever, I didn't feel jealous. I felt worried. Like maybe the pressure she'd always carried was finally bending her spine. Later, at home, I sat cross-legged on the floor with my laptop open but untouched. I scrolled up through our texts. Months, sometimes years between replies. One stood out. From Emily, back when I'd first moved to Atlanta. You'll never understand what it's like to carry everyone's expectations. I laughed softly. Not bitter, just tired. Oh, I think I do. I put the phone down, face first. For once, I wasn't angry at her. Just sad. This system doesn't need repair. It needs reinvention. The conference room was cold, the kind of cold meant to keep minds sharp and time short. Glass walls, screens on all sides. A 3D logistics map hovered in the center. Pixels blinking, roots pulsing, inefficiencies glowing red. I stood at the front, fingers wrapped around the remote like it was the only thing grounding me. Behind me, the CTO, two engineers, Robert Blackwell, silent as ever. The current model assumes static growth, I began, voice steady. But our client's demand doesn't move in straight lines. It breathes, it shifts, it learns. I clicked. A new interface appeared. This system predicts shipping bottlenecks 2 quarters out based on historical volatility, weather patterns, global events, even political shifts. It's not just data-driven, it's adaptive. The room was still. I let it stretch for a beat. Traditional optimization trims fat, I continued. This kills redundancy at the root. We're not rerouting, we're rethinking. I toggled one more slide. A visual forecast showed 21% less waste, 13% faster average delivery, and a reduction in dead inventory zones globally. Silence. Then Robert stepped forward. He placed his hand flat on the digital blueprint like he could feel its pulse, his expression unreadable. The engineers behind him leaned in. The CTO exhaled. You've just cut waste by 21% before we even wrote a line of code. Robert finally looked at me. Build it. He didn't shout. He didn't congratulate. He just commanded. And that, from him, was everything. Within minutes, the engineering lead was shifting teams. A Slack message popped up on my screen from operations. New org chart. Looks like you just redrew the map. I stood there, letting the weight of it settle. Robert remained at the table, fingers tracing the edge of the display. This isn't a plan, he said, barely above a whisper. It's a legacy. His words landed harder than any applause. It wasn't just approval. It was coronation. I nodded slowly, gratefully. For the first time, I saw what he saw, and it terrified me, in the best way. He left her, just like that. The perfect man, the perfect life, gone in one text. The call came at 2:14 a.m. I was still awake. Ethan was half asleep beside me on the couch, the TV humming some quiet nature documentary we weren't watching. My phone buzzed once, then again, then again. Emily. I answered on the third ring. No greeting, just a gasp. Claire, she sobbed. He's gone. My spine straightened. Gone? What do you mean? He left. James left. Said he couldn't do it anymore. Said he feels trapped. Her voice cracked like glass, each syllable barely hanging together. He's been sleeping with someone else. A nurse. I didn't speak. I didn't say, are you surprised? I didn't say, now you know how it feels. I didn't say anything cruel that I'd rehearsed in my head for years. Instead, I said, I'm here. There was silence. Then a broken inhale. He left a text, Claire, she whispered. A text. After everything I gave up. Everything I tried to be. Ethan quietly handed me a glass of water and went to the bedroom. He didn't ask questions. He never did when I looked like this. Frozen but listening. I sat there in the quiet, holding the phone to my ear as Emily cried. My hand shook, not from anger, not from pity, but from something deeper. Something ancient between us finally loosening. I can't tell Mom and Dad, she said. Not yet. I can't take their faces, their disappointment. You don't have to, I replied. She cried harder. When the call ended, nearly an hour later, I opened a new browser tab. I searched for an old contact, a legal consultant I'd once helped with internal audits at Black Tech. I drafted a short message. Transfer $10,000 to this account. No name attached. Anonymous support. Then I pressed send. A day later, the funds cleared. Emily never asked where they came from, but I knew she wondered. She texted me a week later. Someone helped me cover the attorney retainer. It feels like I can breathe again. Whoever it was, I don't deserve it. I stared at the screen, then typed, "You don't have to deserve it. You just have to heal." She replied with a single heart emoji. No words. Maybe none were needed. That night, Ethan pulled me close and asked, "Why did you help her?" I thought about it for a long moment. "Because she's not my rival," I said finally. "She's just my sister." I didn't just forgive her. I let us both be human. Your mother's been in an accident. Drop everything. Come home. The call came just as I finalized the last slide. The boardroom was dim, lit only by my laptop and the faint glow of the city beyond the windows. 12 hours to go. Everything was ready. My phone vibrated, and my father's name lit the screen like a warning. I answered, bracing. "Dad?" "She's in surgery," he said, voice clipped. She fell, fractured her hip. I stood still. "How bad?" I asked. "She'll recover, but that's not the point." A pause. "You need to come home. Now." My heart skipped. "I'm presenting to the board in the morning. It's the final round for CEO and..." He snapped. "And," I said, trying to stay even. "I've spent years preparing for this. If she's stable..." "She's your mother," he cut in. "You drop everything, or you show us where your priorities really are." Ethan looked up from his seat in the corner, alert now. He mouthed, "Everything okay?" I turned away slightly, hand pressed against the glass. "Dad, I'll be on the first flight after my presentation. I can be there by early afternoon." Silence. Then his voice, rising. "If you walk into that boardroom tomorrow instead of coming home, don't bother calling again." "You're no daughter of mine?" My throat tightened. "You don't mean that." Click. He hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand, my pulse thunderous. The room was quiet again, but I felt like the windows were shaking. Ethan crossed the space between us. "Claire?" I didn't speak. "He's scared," Ethan said gently. "That doesn't mean he's right." I nodded, still frozen. "You know what you have to do," he added. I looked at the laptop, the deck I had built from scratch. The vision I'd refined over years. The dream they never believed in. I reached for the presentation remote, clicked the final slide forward, and whispered the close line under my breath. Then I turned to Ethan. "I'm going to nail this pitch," I said. "Then I'll go see my mother." He said nothing, just watched as I squared my shoulders. He hung up, and I stood straighter. If I wasn't their daughter anymore, then I was free to be something more. The boardroom at Black Tech was cathedral silent. Sleek walls, glass table. 11 high-backed chairs, each occupied by someone whose vote could alter the trajectory of my life. At the head of the table sat Robert Blackwell, expression carved from stone. I stood alone before them. No title to shield me. Just the work. Just the truth. Behind me, the first slide flickered onto the screen. Legacy is not inherited. It's designed. I let the sentence sit there. Let them breathe it in. "When I started here," I began, "our global shipping model was held together by duct tape and guesswork. In 2 years, we've cut waste by 21%, trimmed delivery times by 13%, and transformed dead inventory into actionable forecasting. Click slide 2. The AI integrated ecosystem I'd built. Live models, adaptive logic, predictive routing. Data, but human. Smart, but scalable. Others use AI to mirror existing processes. I said, we taught ours to challenge assumptions. I saw a twitch at the corner of the CFO's mouth. A shift in the external candidate's shoulders. Click, case studies, testimonials, performance deltas before and after implementation. The room was still, but not cold. They were listening. This isn't just a system, I said, stepping away from the slides. It's a philosophy. Black tech can lead not because we follow trends, but because we make the path others study. Silence. Then the chairwoman leaned forward. And how do you plan to scale this? I answered without hesitation. Start with regional replication. License our core logic. Layer in local data. Maintain internal oversight. Outsource nothing we can automate. Phase 1 is already in motion. Another board member nodded. 2 others exchanged looks, that flicker of something I hadn't seen before. Respect. I closed with a quiet line. This isn't about me, I said. It's about making sure we're not asking the world to catch up to us. We're asking how far we're willing to lead. Silence. And then, Robert stood. He didn't look at the slides. He didn't glance at the notes in front of him. He looked only at the board. 3 candidates, he said. Only one of them built something that fundamentally changed us. He turned to me. His voice, for once, loud enough for the entire room. Claire Mitchell is the next CEO of Black Tech. Unanimous vote. I couldn't breathe. Then, as if sealing the verdict in bronze, Robert added, Congratulations, son. The applause came slowly, then stronger. Polite. Professional. But I heard it. Outside the boardroom, Ethan waited with a coffee in each hand. He didn't need to ask. He saw it in my eyes. He grinned. I smiled back, then felt the buzz in my pocket. Mom. Out of surgery. Doing okay. Dad. Still furious. I stared at the screen and didn't answer. We've always been proud of you, my mother said, as if history could be edited like a Word document. The hospital's whitewashed walls glowed faintly in the background of the video call. My parents sat side by side, Mom propped up in bed, Dad angled close to fit in the frame. She had color in her cheeks again. He wore a collared shirt like he was ready to appear in a magazine spread about family resilience. On my screen, I watched them smile as if the past decade had been some kind of mutual dream, or a footnote. I saw the article in Tech World, Dad said, adjusting his glasses. Your photo in front of the headquarters, that was a strong pose. Confident. Mom leaned forward slightly, eyes gleaming. I told the nurses, that's our girl. She's always been determined. Remember that lemonade stand you did? I knew even then you were destined for big things. A pause. You said it was a cute hobby, I replied, tone neutral. You told me I should try piano like Emily. Mom waved her hand. Oh, honey, we were just being practical. You know how parents worry. But we always believed in you. Ethan, sitting on the couch across from me, caught my eye. His expression was unreadable, but his grip tightened around his mug. Dad jumped in. You remember when you made those fake business cards for dog walking? I've been telling my colleagues for years. She was born to be a CEO. I blinked. You told me I should go into nursing, I said. That business wasn't stable. My mother's smile faltered for a beat. Well, perhaps we didn't understand it back then. You know how things can look different in hindsight? History doesn't change just because you're more comfortable with the edited version, I said, the words slipping out before I could soften them. They both froze. You're being sensitive, Dad said, voice suddenly tight. No, I said. I'm being accurate. Silence. I looked at them. Truly looked. Not with longing or resentment, just clarity. You didn't build this with me, I said. You just showed up at the ribbon cutting. They blinked, offended, as if honesty was the real betrayal. She was 19, scared, and brilliant. I saw myself. The glass doors of Black Tech's conference center reflected rows of folding chairs, white linen, and nervous energy. 47 young women sat upright in their seats, not a single phone in sight. I remembered that silence, the kind that filled the air when you were so determined to prove yourself that you didn't dare breathe too loud. I stepped to the podium. Good afternoon, I began, voice steady. I want to start with a sentence no one said to me when I was your age. You belong here. The room shifted, shoulders straightened, eyes locked in. When I was 19, I continued, I built a delivery optimization system out of free trial software and borrowed textbooks. I presented it in a classroom while my family was across town at a piano recital. They believed in excellence, just not mine. Scattered nods, a few quiet exhales. Sometimes your biggest doubts live in your own home, I said. That doesn't make them right. I paused, then gestured to the name projected behind me, the Unclapped Voices Fellowship. This program is for the overlooked, I said, the ones who built things in the shadows. We're not handing out pity, we're lighting torches. Applause broke like a warm tide, and when it faded, Robert stepped up beside me. She built more than a company, he said, scanning the crowd. She built belief. I caught his glance and offered a smile, grateful but quiet. This wasn't about me. Afterward, I floated through the reception, exchanging names, shaking hands, answering questions I used to be afraid to ask. Someone tapped my shoulder. Emily. She looked smaller than usual. No camera-ready smile. Just tired eyes and a modest navy dress. Her hair was pulled back like it had been rushed into place. Hey, she said. Hey, I replied. She fidgeted. I was wondering, could I be part of the next cohort? I blinked. As a speaker, I asked. She shook her head. As a learner. The air between us thickened, soft and strange. I'm trying to rebuild, she added quickly. My career, myself, you know? I didn't speak. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around her. We're all still learning, I whispered. She squeezed tighter. Later, in a quiet alcove by the catering table, she leaned in and said something I'll never forget. You gave me back myself, she said. Not even Mom ever did that. I nodded, heart thudding. Not with pride, but with peace. Maybe we weren't meant to compete. Maybe we were meant to collaborate. They brought dessert. They brought peace. I brought boundaries. The scent of rosemary chicken hung warm in the air as I adjusted the silverware for the third time. Ethan caught me fussing and gently took the napkin from my hand. They're not the Queen of England, he said. No, I murmured, but this is the first time they've come to my table. The knock came at 6 sharp. Punctual, of course. My parents entered with a paper bag of artisan pastries and the kind of polite stiffness you bring to a job interview. Emily followed, arms full of wine and her usual effort to bridge worlds. We hugged, exchanged cautious greetings, and for once, no one mentioned traffic. Dinner began simple. Conversation wove gently through weather, renovations, local news. Then, something new. Dad asked Ethan about his job. Supply chain consulting, right? Like Claire? Similar logic, Ethan said. Just less AI, more headaches. Mom laughed, genuinely. You're funny, she said. You know, I never realized how much you two complement each other. I glanced at her. She caught the look. What? She asked. Nothing, I said, but it was something. Halfway through the meal, Mom pulled out her phone. I found an old photo, she said, tapping the screen. You were maybe 9, setting up that lemonade stand. Look at your face. She zoomed in. Your eyes, so determined. I never noticed before. I didn't reply, just looked. Not at the picture, but at her, seeing it for the first time. After the dishes were cleared, Dad lingered by the window. "Can I speak with you?" he asked. I joined him. Ethan caught my eye. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "I don't get tech," Dad said, arms crossed. "Still don't. Honestly, most of what you do sounds like wizardry to me." I smiled faintly. "But I get people," he continued. "And you've become someone I admire." My chest tightened, but I didn't cry. I didn't collapse into sentiment. I just breathed. "Thank you," I said. He nodded. "I know we weren't what you needed back then." I met his gaze. "We can build something now, but it can't be based on lies." He swallowed hard, then offered his hand. I shook it. Later, after dessert and dishes, we stood around the kitchen, laughing at something Ethan said about cooking disasters. The tension that used to haunt every Mitchell gathering was still there, but dimmed, manageable. And for once, we cleared the table and didn't leave a mess. She asked for a photo. I sent the one with the bruises. Emotional, not physical. The office was quiet, long past sunset. Only the glow of my monitor and the skyline beyond kept me company. Everyone else had gone home hours ago, but I wasn't tired. Not tonight. The subject line read, "Legacy Essay. Advice?" It was from Rachel, one of the first mentees in the Unclapped Voices Fellowship. She'd sat in the front row at orientation, notebook poised like a soldier's shield. "What makes someone worthy of leadership?" she wrote. "Everyone says results, but I'm not sure that's the whole answer." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The first draft came too easily. "Results?" I paused. Backspaced. Typed again. "Resilience." And knowing when to stop asking others to clap. I sat with the sentence, letting it hum inside me. The kind of truth that doesn't need punctuation to be final. A text from Ethan blinked at the corner of my screen. "Home soon. Want me to pick up pho or pizza?" I smiled. "Pho. Extra basil." Just as I was about to shut down, my phone rang. "Robert Blackwell," the screen read. I answered. "Still working?" "You'd be disappointed if I said no," he replied. I laughed. "Maybe." He didn't waste time. "They're calling you the quiet storm." I blinked. "Who?" "Everyone. Industry analysts, partners. Internally, you've become a case study. The executive who never raised her voice but moved tectonic plates." I leaned back in my chair. I'm okay being the thunder that doesn't need an audience. Robert chuckled. "That's exactly why they hear you." We spoke for a few more minutes. Strategy, expansion, something about a Singapore pitch, but I barely absorbed it. My thoughts had drifted to Rachel again. I opened a folder titled Speeches and found the file from my CEO presentation. I added a new line at the top. "For those who had to build their own stage." Saved it as legacynotInherited.x. I attached it to the email and clicked send. A reply came just 15 minutes later. "I didn't think I could be someone until I saw you be everything." I closed the laptop. The room was quiet, but I was not alone. The light was coming from within. Emily was awarded Emerging Artist of the Year. I was promoted to regional lead. Only one of us needed applause. The live stream flickered on the corner of my monitor. Emily stood on stage, bathed in soft lighting, holding a crystal plaque shaped like a brushstroke. The crowd applauded. She smiled, poised, grateful. Not performative, not pretending. I muted the video and turned back to the boxes on my desk. 4 years in this office, 3 promotions, dozens of battles, mostly invisible ones. I'd thought I'd want a ceremony, a photo op, something to pin this transition to memory, but I didn't. I just wanted clean closure. Ethan knocked gently against the glass. "You sure you don't want me to take a photo?" Nice light coming through the window. I glanced at the view. Sun spilling across the skyline, my reflection half formed in the glass. "Nah," I said. I remember what matters. He nodded and leaned against the doorframe, sipping his coffee, letting the silence between us be warm. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily. I wouldn't be here if you hadn't been so invisible back then. Thank you. I stared at the text. It didn't sting. It didn't ripple. It just settled. I typed back slowly. It's okay. I see myself now. A quiet hum filled the room from a nearby AC vent. Ethan walked over, offered me the last caramel from his pocket. I took it. We didn't need music or clapping or declarations. Some stories don't end with applause. They end with peace. They once silenced her with comparison, erased her with indifference. But in the end, she didn't need their approval. She built a legacy where none was offered and found peace where applause used to matter. Like a verdict long withheld, justice didn't come loudly. But when it came, it reshaped everything. Because when courage outlasts cruelty, even the unseen rise and leave their mark. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Type 1 if you resonate with this story,